Well, good afternoon, everyone. Meteorologist Michael Wilhite here with Southern Indiana Weather. Wanting to bring you the latest long-range update here. We got some showers around the area today. It's nothing big going on. Live look at radar here. It's 4:13 Eastern Time as I'm recording this video. We've had a few showers roll through Southern Indiana here, but nothing really big yet. That shower activity may increase as we go a little bit later on in through the night and into tomorrow, but by and large, not a huge deal. Here's the current radar. You can just see. Well, just backing it out here a little bit. Not a whole lot around the area going on. Now, if we take a look at the surface map and you see what's going on, the low is still down to our south, and so that's where the strongest portions of the rain is going to be. That low will near us as we move into the overnight hours and pass through the area, so I think our rain will get a little bit heavier as we go into the overnight hours. But then that kind of breaks up, and by the time you're out into tomorrow afternoon, it'll just be some light shower activity again, sort of spotty as that pulls away, and then that'll be out of there. We dry out under high pressure for Wednesday and Thursday. Then Thursday we kind of cloud up again, and we may have a chance of some more snow showers. The GFS not really hinting at this very strongly right now, but the GFS struggles with this kind of setup. We're going to talk about that in a second. But all eyes really are going to be focused on what's going to be coming this weekend, and that's probably what's going to be dominating the weather this week is the potential for a snowstorm. I've talked about this a little bit last week as well. The timing has moved on this. It went to a Thursday storm, then it was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday storm, and then it moved on to the weekend, and it's just all, anytime the models are in the long range, you really expect there to be a whole lot of chaos like this. But now that we're here into Monday, and this is 5 days away or so here, we're starting to get into the shorter range now where we can really fine-tune the details. Unfortunately, the model's not really being overly helpful yet. They will probably start to get better on Wednesday because that's when the energy from the system is going to roll on shore, that you'll see here in just a second. But let's just take a look at the models just really briefly here. High pressure, large and in charge through a chunk of the week, and then after these showers move through. But then you've got this storm system, this little wave that's moving down here across across the mountain west and into the Great Plains. Here's a low pressure, and then watch what happens. You got a low pressure that's coming up from the Gulf of Mexico, sort of like this. And as these two come towards each other, what happens is the GFS is just sort of handing off, transferring the energy from that low pressure to the one in the Gulf. So there's a little bit of snow on this particular model run coming in during the overnight hours of Friday night into Saturday morning. But then the low develops down to our south, and that's where the big snowstorm comes from. Also could be some ice and freezing rain concerns for some in there as well. And this particular run of it, traces it here over Florida and then pretty much out to sea before it does much of anything. But, that does clip us with a little bit of snow, and it would be cold enough during that time frame for it to stick as well with higher snow ratios. We could get a couple or 3 inches potentially out of a setup like this if everything worked out right, but it's so far down to our south that the mega snow totals would be down to the south with it as well. Unfortunately, though, there's good model agreement on a storm happening. There's no good model agreement on who gets it. Under this kind of a setup, well, you got the Tennessee Valley there, Nashville getting hammered with some snow here, but let's back up to a different model run. Same model, this is the GFS, but I'm going to show you, what I just showed you was the one that was initialized at 7 a.m. this morning. This is the one that was initialized at 7 p.m. last night. Big difference with this, and you just watch. So here's that snow as it ejects, and watch, the low really never transfers its energy down to the Gulf Coast. This never really happens, and so as it comes up here, the low comes north as a result, and Kentucky and portions of southern Indiana really get the mega snow totals with that, and I'll show you the maps here in a minute to get an idea of what I mean. So which is going to be right, though? Is it going to be a more northerly solution like this or a very southerly solution like that? No one really knows right now. If anyone tells you they've got it figured out, well, just don't trust them, because there's no way to have this figured out right now. It's just impossible. We're going to have to give the models more time in the oven, as we say, to be able to bake a little bit more, and hopefully by Wednesday some things will get a little bit better under this solution. Certainly you would have a pretty hefty snowstorm with it as well. The Canadian model is not being overly helpful. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. It's gone into a phase where it's not overly helpful. It does at least see some slight snow showers here on Thursday. The GFS doesn't see that. I think that's a real possibility, and in the upper level charts in a minute I'm going to show you why here. I do think that's a possibility. But here you have the latest Canadian, and what's it doing? Here's this wave, and it suppresses it so far down to the south. Look how far south the low is. The GFS had the low right up here into the Georgia-Florida line, and this has got it down here where it's going to cross over Miami. Well, not really over Miami. It sort of ejects like this. So it's going to cross over the southern portion of Florida down here. You get the idea, though. The suppression on this is so far south, absolutely nothing happens this weekend. Now, it's not been saying that all the time. There have been some times where it's had a little bit more north. The run that was initialized last night gave us this, where it did have just a little bit of light snow shower activity. But again, it was pretty far suppressed down to the south as well. And again, the key here is that you have a stronger high pressure with this 1045 high. That will tend to suppress a storm pretty far south. Absolutely, that's a high pressure. A low pressure is never going to win out against a high. It's just meteorologically impossible. A high is always going to win out, and so that's acting as kind of a suppression agent to suppress it so far down to the south. But the reality is every model is struggling right now with how intense this high is going to be. And so if we went back to the GFS on this, you see, well, this is only a 1042 high up here. And let me back it up a little bit. By the time the system's rolling through, yeah, it's 1042, but look at this. It's up here at Minnesota, all right? And, this is down here towards Illinois. That's a big difference. It's also a little bit stronger high, allows it to come a little further south. So the position of the high pressure and the intensity of the high pressure right now are one of the things that the models are really struggling with. And how strong that Arctic high is going to be is going to depend on how far south the storm ends up developing, whether it can marry with this system that that's coming up here in the Gulf, transfer its low down to the Gulf and really become more of a Gulf low, or whether it never interacts with that at all and just sort of translates right across the Ohio Valley. There's some things right now that we'll have to just sort of wait and see on. That said, here is the Euro model, and a lot of everybody says, it's the King Euro model. Not this year. The Euro took an upgrade, and the upgrade has actually made it worse, in my opinion. It's not handled itself well lately, so there's no real good model agreement. It does at least, however, see those light snow showers rolling through the area on Thursday. Both the Canadian and the Euro see that. The GFS does not, but the GFS is the odd man out there. We'll keep some light snow showers into the forecast. Will it accumulate? Maybe not a whole, probably not a whole lot, but they're definitely in the forecast. Untreated roadways certainly could get slick. It's going to be cold enough probably for some things to stick, so we'll look at that when we look at temperatures in a minute. Regardless, here's what it does though once that rolls out here. So now you're coming into the early morning hours on Friday. Here's the activity rolling in from the west. Remember, this is not as pretty as a map as the other one. I apologize for that, but I don't have that nice looking map that I do for the others here with the Euro. Watch what this does. Here, this system's coming up from the south. Those two marry happily together, and you've got a low. It's not tracking it like the Canadian right down here over the very southern portion of it. And, GFS is even a little bit more north in this. This is kind of in between, and this tracks it right over the Pensacola area here and through. So, before that's off, this would give no effect on us if the Euro was right. The Euro has, just like the others, have been completely different, or vastly different anyway, if not completely different, every single run. So right now, there's just no good way. What I can show you is, let's talk about the upper levels of the atmosphere, because this is where we get down to the really details of why and what's going to happen. And there's some vast differences in this. And again, it just depends on the depth of this Arctic air and the depth of this trough that's going to be swinging through. And that's going to make the key in things. So right now, the 12Z models, here's what we had yesterday, and here's today. All right, so the models today want to keep this energy that moves in a little bit more to the south. That spits the low out just south of this energy like you would expect. But if you look at the one from yesterday, last night, that energy is more closer to us, and so you get a low that's more closer to us, and you get snow swath through us. Big differences here. So let's sort of disable everything here, and let's use just this one, and let's sort of talk about what we can expect. There's the energy swinging through with the rain and things, and that's all gone out. But then watch as we get this little energy moving through. This is the energy that's going to move through here on Thursday during the overnight hours, and then you get here into here 7 a.m. on Thursday. That's a pretty good little jet streak, and this is the GFS, by the way. Remember, the GFS not showing any snow shower activity. It was frankly kind of strange. And let me just turn on my pencil here, and you'll see what I mean by this. I know you can't see what I'm doing here, but I'm changing my tools, and that will let me get on. Here we go. Just something better to draw on with it here. Maybe that one might work, but boy, that's not a good color for that. Let me go back to orange. Yeah, maybe you can see that a little bit better. Maybe black will be better. Hard to draw on maps like this. There we go. Let's use black from here on out. So you see this energy basically, though, that what you've got going on in here. Well, this sort of energy, that's a pretty impressive. What we're looking here is vorticity in the atmosphere, that's spin in the atmosphere. So what we are looking through as this rolls through, that's going to squeeze out some moisture, some precipitation in the atmosphere. That the reality is, the models just are not going to be able to see it, but it's going to be there. Now, it's not usually going to squeak out a significant amount, but you can get some snow showers with this, and you can get a light dusting out of this to a coating maybe, if things line up just right with this. So even though the GFS on its surface map does not show that, well, that does not mean that it, certainly isn't true. All right. So let me get back to this then here, and if I can get everything to cooperate, we'll do better. But here's the GFS model, and just back this up again. Here's Thursday, and remember, it's not really seen much of anything. A tiny little speck there, some tiny specks up here by the Great Lakes. But the reality is we are looking for vorticity like this here to pass over us. So something's probably going to happen. I would say there's a pretty good chance of some snow showers somewhere in the area, even if it's not on the surface map. What I really want you to keep an eye on, though, is this right here. This energy that's going to move on shore on Wednesday and Thursday. So it starts off moving on to shore here on Wednesday, finishes up moving shore on Thursday. That is the energy that is going to ultimately spawn our little system this weekend that will move over us and could bring us the snow system. And you can kind of see, back it up here, you can see how it dives down here. This would be under a setup where to our north, the high pressure is there, but it's not quite as strong. Now, if I go back to the other one, so again, here's that. Watch what happens here, though, under this setup. High pressure is a little bit stronger. There's the vorticity as it swings through on Thursday. Still some snow showers on that model. But notice this feature coming in over Oregon is already a little bit further to the south because of that high pressure suppressing it. And then watch what happens with this. It's vastly further. Excuse me, let me get on the right one. Vastly more south. So here we go at 114 hours out, and look at this. That's a pretty significant little difference here. And so by the time this swings through, yeah, you're talking a pretty difference, a pretty good wide difference here in the vorticity. That's going to make a big difference in that positioning of the low as well. And so, well, that's going to determine everything. So right now, folks, the models have got to come on to the solution over the coming days of how strong this high pressure is going to be, and just exactly where it is that this vorticity is going to go in response to that high pressure. And that's really going to be the key to locking in on this forecast. And so that means we could get some decent snow here in the Ohio Valley, or it could mean the Tennessee Valley gets some decent amount of snow. Let me show you that. I always hesitate to show these snow maps this far out. I don't want to hype things up, but I do want to prepare you for what could be happening. And I also want to say every one of these could be dead wrong, and we could get nothing or next to nothing out of this. But I always like you to know what the model data is showing so that you can make your own determination. If you've got weekend plans anywhere in the eastern half of the country here, you really need to keep an eye on the forecast. So this is the current one, all right? This is what, and no, this is not, excuse me, this is the 0Z. So this is what the GFS was showing last night, and that's a pretty hefty snowstorm over southern Illinois, getting 15 plus inches here of snow in some places, 10 inches there in Evansville, 9.5 Louisville, 6.5 as far north as Bloomington, 7.6 in Vincennes. That's a crippling snowstorm for us. It's going to shut things down. Not so fast, though. Here's what this morning said, and you notice that it shifted it that far south. Again, the vorticity going further south forms the low further south. We still get some rain, or excuse me, still get some snow here around the area. By the way, this is not going to be a rain event. This will be all snow from the way things look right now. We don't even fight that around here, the way things look this far out. We could still get some snow. Under this, that's still 4.3 inches in Evansville, 2.3 there in Louisville, and yeah, still light dusting up there towards Bloomington, 1.4 in Vincennes. And so you got a couple of inches from this darker blue on down south here. So you get the idea here that there's still some decent little snow accumulations with this. It's not a mega storm. The Tennessee really getting some hefty snow totals there, about 7 inches there around Nashville, and 15 inches and plus 18 inches. Keep in mind, though, that there's sleet and freezing rain also mixing in with this, and the GFS does not differentiate that in its snow maps here. So these heavier snow totals down here also have a lot of ice accumulated with that. That's a pretty crippling storm system for them down there. If that's the case, it would be all snow for us, no ice with this, the way things look, thankfully. But that's a pretty big difference. And just to show you a couple of other model solutions here was the model in between there, and it gave, again, it targets a pretty decent little storm down to our south. small accumulations up here, but still accumulating snow. And then just for fun, yesterday afternoon's GFS, again, the same idea. And you see most of these are targeting more towards the Tennessee Valley than us, but every one of these showing some accumulating snow for us in some fashion in southern Indiana. So I think there's a reasonable shot that we could get some accumulating snow this weekend. How much? Well, that's still far out to say. And there's also a reasonable chance, being it's 5 days away, that the system could go entirely to our south and miss us completely. That is an option on the table that we do need to stress. All right. That said, though, a lot of data showing that we could get some, especially if you look at the Ensemble data. Really good support on the GFS ensembles for a snowstorm somewhere here with this. This is the latest one today, and you see really, there's some very crippling storms on some of these members down to our south, but some of these, that brings some pretty hefty totals here. Ensemble member 15, some decent totals here on 5 as well, and on 9. So a few of these, a few of these do bring us some decent little numbers here. Here's the one from last night as well, and you see there are some that give us some pretty epic snowstorms right over us as well. So again, there's support on the Ensemble data here for some snow, so we're just going to have to work this out. But again, I show you these not to scare you or to cause you to panic, but to prepare. All eyes need to be on the weekend storm. We could have our first real threat, and it could be a decent threat this weekend, or it could turn out to be very minor or nothing at all. So we got to include all those. I know that you would love for me to be able to say, here's the snow map, and I think that we're going to get a 1 to 3 inches here and a 3 to 6 inch swath here. I'd love to be able to give you specifics with a personal forecast and be definite. I can't do that right now yet because we're just too far out at this point. But every day we get closer to this, and every day the models continue to snow show, confidence will continue to grow for this weekend. So keep an idea on this. I'm going to be doing videos a lot more this week. I'm going to be doing updated posts a lot more this week as long as the data continues to show this. It looks like it could be a pretty decent little system out of this. And then we'll end on this. Here is what the model data is suggesting, and for this weekend, it does look like it's going to be cold enough to snow. A high of only on Saturday here around 30 degrees according to the Ensemble data at this point, into the upper 20s on Thursday, Friday, and then you see there is a little bit of a warm up here after this system. That's very much in doubt at this point. The longer you get into this, the more doubt that you cast on it. Warm the next day, tomorrow as well, before the thermometer starts to go creep downward. But the cold locked into place enough that if we can get that little vorticity and that little low, if that can come in just the right way to send us some precipitation this weekend, it'll fall as snow. So confident of that. The question is, where is it going to go? Is it going to be us? Is it going to be the Tennessee Valley towards Nashville? Is it going to be somewhere in between in Kentucky, maybe get hammered instead of southern Indiana? All those are options on the table at this point, folks. Just stay tuned and we'll keep you up to date as best we can. That's it for this lengthy video update, but hopefully now you understand the pattern and the details about what's going on at hand here. I'll have more blog posts and discussions and all of this throughout the week, so be sure to stay tuned. Follow me on Facebook at facebook.com/Southern Indiana Weather, and follow me on Twitter. My handle is @SouthernINWX.